Tonight, we dive into 3 terrifying true stories that will make you question what's lurking in the shadows. These are not urban legends. These are real events, experienced by real people, just like you and me. A disappearance that defies logic. A series of phone calls that become a nightmare. And a discovery in an old house that unearths something truly malevolent. So, turn down the lights, get comfortable, and prepare yourself for a terrifying encounter with your scariest thoughts. Moments that will make you want to click on a different video, but out of curiosity in the second story, you won't be able to stop watching and listening. I'm not here to scare you, but to make you aware of the mysteries of the unknown. A time others were not as fortunate as you. So kindly like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more bone-chilling stories. The first story takes us to a quiet town where a man went on a routine fishing trip and simply vanished. It's a story that begins with the gentle lapping of water against a boat and ends in a chilling silence. In the heart of Millersfield, a town where everyone knew each other's names and secrets rarely lasted long, Arthur Vance was a familiar sight. He was the kind of man people waved to from their porches, a retired mechanic with a gentle smile and a reputation for reliability. He'd lived in Millersfield his whole life, and folks said he knew every inch of the land and water around it. But Arthur was happiest when he was alone, fishing at Black Hollow Lake, a place as mysterious as it was beautiful. The lake was his sanctuary, a spot where he could escape the world and lose himself in the quiet rhythm of casting and reeling. Every Tuesday and Friday, without fail, Arthur followed the same ritual. He'd rise before the first hint of dawn, moving quietly through the house so as not to wake his wife, Clara. He'd pour himself a cup of strong coffee, pack his old thermos, and gather his tackle box, each movement practiced and precise from years of repetition. By sunrise, he'd be out on the water, the only sound the gentle splash of his oars and the distant call of loons. The lake, shrouded in morning mist, seemed to belong to him alone. But one crisp October morning, everything changed. Arthur didn't come home. As the hours passed, Clara's concern grew into dread. She watched the driveway, hoping to see his old pickup rumble in, but as dusk settled over Millersfield, the truck was still gone. The sheriff was called, and soon they found Arthur's truck parked neatly at the lake's boat launch. Inside, his keys and wallet sat untouched on the seat, as if he'd only stepped away for a moment. Everything was in its place. Except Arthur himself. A search party was quickly organized. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers combed the woods and the shoreline, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they called his name. They found his boat drifting aimlessly in the thick morning fog, empty and eerily silent. Inside, his fishing rod was propped against the side, a half-eaten sandwich rested on the seat, and his coffee was still warm, as if he'd just been there. The fishing line was pulled tight, snagged on a low-hanging branch near the shore. It looked as though Arthur had been in the middle of reeling in a catch when something interrupted him. There were no signs of a struggle, no footprints in the mud, no ripples on the water's surface. It was as if Arthur had simply vanished into thin air. For weeks the townspeople searched. Boats combed the lake, volunteers walked the shoreline, and divers braved the cold, murky water. But there was no trace of Arthur, no clothing, no footprints, nothing. The official story was simple. Arthur must have fallen overboard and drowned, his body lost to the lake's dark depths. The authorities closed the case, but the explanation felt hollow to many. Locals whispered about the thick, unnatural fog that had rolled in that morning, thicker than anyone could remember. Some said it was the kind of fog that could swallow a man whole. And there were old legends, stories passed down through generations, about something ancient and restless lurking beneath Black Hollow Lake's surface, something that didn't like to be disturbed. Clara never believed the official story. She knew Arthur better than anyone, and she was certain he hadn't simply slipped and fallen. She pored over every detail, replaying the morning in her mind. How could a man so careful, so set in his ways, disappear so quickly, so completely? The questions haunted her. Years have passed and Black Hollow Lake remains as peaceful and beautiful as ever. The water glistens at sunset, and the loons still call across the mist. But when the fog rolls in thick and low, fishermen glance over their shoulders, uneasy, remembering the day Arthur vanished without a trace. Arthur Vance's disappearance is still an open wound in Millersfield, a mystery that lingers in the air and in the hearts of those who knew him. Some say the lake keeps its secrets well. He went fishing one ordinary morning and was never seen again. To this day, the question remains, what really happened to Arthur Vance at Black Hollow Lake? In 2012, college student Rachel's life was upended by a series of chilling phone calls. She was a diligent student, often burning the midnight oil to keep up with her demanding coursework. Little did she know her late-night study sessions would soon be interrupted by something far more sinister. It started with a blocked number at 2:13 a.m. She ignored it, until it happened again, and again. Each time the phone would ring just long enough to wake her, but not long enough for her to answer. The persistent calls began to fray her nerves. On the third night, she answered. A raspy voice whispered her name, described her room, her blue curtains. The voice was chilling, almost inhuman, and it sent shivers down her spine. She hung up immediately, her heart pounding in her chest. The calls continued nightly, each time revealing more about her life, her clothes, her haircut, even her crush. It was as if the caller had a window into her private world, and the invasion of her privacy was terrifying. She felt exposed and vulnerable. Terrified, Rachel changed her number. 2 nights of silence, then the calls resumed. Same time, same voice. The caller seemed to be mocking her efforts to escape, and the sense of dread grew with each passing night. "Did you really think that would stop me, Rachel?" the caller taunted. The voice was now more menacing, filled with a cruel amusement that made her blood run cold. She felt trapped, with no way to escape the relentless harassment. Rachel became a prisoner in her own home, her grades slipping, her friends worried. She was constantly on edge, jumping at every unexpected sound. Her once vibrant social life dwindled as she withdrew into herself, consumed by fear. The voice grew more menacing, describing what he wanted to do to her. The threats were graphic and horrifying, leaving her feeling violated and helpless. She began to dread the night, knowing that the calls would come and bring with them a fresh wave of terror. Desperate, her father hired a private investigator. They traced the calls to a grave in a local cemetery. The discovery was both shocking and baffling. How could the calls be coming from a place of the dead? The grave belonged to a telephone lineman who died a year earlier. The lineman had been a quiet man, known for his meticulous work and solitary nature. His death had been ruled an accident, but now it seemed there was more to the story. Police discovered the lineman's disturbed son had found his father's journals and used burner phones, routing calls through a cell tower near the grave as a twisted tribute. The son had inherited his father's obsession with surveillance and control, and he had taken it to a dark and dangerous extreme. The son confessed he'd chosen Rachel at random, continuing his father's obsession with surveillance and control. He had no personal vendetta against her. She was simply an unlucky target in his twisted game. The calls stopped, but Rachel's sense of safety never fully returned. She was constantly looking over her shoulder, haunted by the memory of those terrifying nights. The experience had left a deep scar on her psyche. The truth was more horrifying than any ghost story. The real monster was human, hiding behind technology and obsession. The realization that someone could invade her life so completely, using nothing more than a phone, was a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurk in the shadows of our modern world. Sometimes, the scariest voices in the night aren't from the other side. They're from someone watching, just out of sight. The thought that someone could be watching her, even now, was enough to keep her awake at night. Rachel's story is a reminder. Not all hauntings are supernatural. The real world can be just as terrifying, if not more so. The experience had changed her, making her more cautious and aware of the potential dangers that lurk in the most unexpected places. Some nightmares are all too real. They don't end when you wake up. They follow you into the daylight, casting a long shadow over your life. And sometimes, they know your number. The thought that someone could reach out and touch her life so intimately, with nothing more than a phone call, was a sobering reminder of the vulnerability we all share in this connected world. Mark and Chloe thought their first house was a dream, an enchanting Victorian with creaking floors and sunlit windows, the kind of place where new memories are made. They imagined laughter echoing through the halls, cozy evenings by the fireplace, and a future built on the promise of a fresh start. The house seemed to welcome them, its old bones holding stories of families past, waiting for new life to fill its rooms. But that dream began to unravel the day they found the hidden room. A secret space the house had kept to itself for decades, shrouded in silence and dust. While renovating the upstairs bedroom, Mark noticed something odd. The room's dimensions didn't match the floor plan. A wall jutted out just a little too far, and the closet seemed smaller than it should have been. Curiosity turned to suspicion as he measured again and again, each time confirming the same impossible result. A hollow echo behind the wall led to a false panel, cleverly disguised beneath layers of old wallpaper. Behind it, a locked door, its handle cold and untouched, as if it hadn't been turned in years, waited in the darkness. Inside, they found a windowless room barely large enough for a single chair. The chair faced a wall covered in strange hand-drawn symbols, circles, runes, and markings that seemed to pulse in the dim light. In the corner, a battered chest overflowed with occult books, dried herbs, and silver daggers, their blades tarnished with age. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and something else, something metallic and sharp. At the bottom of the chest, beneath a tangle of yellowed pages, they found a stack of cassette tapes. Each tape was carefully labeled with a date, spanning years they didn't recognize. The handwriting was shaky, desperate. They dusted off an old cassette player and pressed play. The previous owner's voice crackled through the static, describing rituals performed in the dead of night, pleading with something unseen for mercy, for release. The voice grew frantic, the words tumbling over each other in terror. The tape ended abruptly with a guttural growl and a scream that echoed through the tiny room, then fell into a suffocating silence. Mark and Chloe stared at each other, hearts pounding, as if the house itself was holding its breath. That night, the house changed. Shadows seemed to move on their own, stretching and twisting in the corners of their vision. The air felt colder, heavier, as if something unseen was watching from the darkness. At 3 a.m. they were jolted awake by scratching from inside the walls. Soft, at first. Then, frantic. The same inhuman growl from the tape echoed through the house, rattling the windows and freezing them in terror. Terrified, Mark and Chloe grabbed what they could and fled into the night, leaving the house and its secrets behind. They never returned, not even to collect the rest of their belongings. The house went back on the market, its history carefully omitted from the listing. Behind a false wall, the hidden room waited, its door locked, its secrets undisturbed. For now. Mark and Chloe never spoke of what they heard that night. But sometimes, in the quiet moments, they wondered if the new owners ever found the room, or if they, too, heard the scratching in the night. The previous owner hadn't just dabbled in the occult, he'd succeeded in summoning something. The rituals described on the tapes were not mere superstition, but a desperate attempt to contain what he had unleashed. And whatever it was still there, waiting in the darkness, patient and hungry, bound to the room by symbols and secrets. Sometimes the past refuses to stay buried. It claws its way back, leaving marks that never truly fade, haunting those who dare to look too closely. Some doors should never be opened, no matter how curious or brave you think you are. Curiosity can be a dangerous thing in a house with secrets. And some houses are better left forgotten, their stories sealed away behind brick and plaster, their darkness undisturbed. Mark and Chloe learned that some dreams become nightmares the moment you cross the threshold. What seems like a new beginning can quickly become a descent into fear. The house was their future, until they discovered the darkness that lived within its walls, a darkness that would never let them forget. Some rooms are hidden for a reason, and some secrets are meant to stay locked away, forever. That's where we end tonight's stories. A man vanished in the fog, a student haunted by a voice, and a couple who found more than they bargained for in their new home. If these stories kept you up tonight, you're not alone. Sometimes the most terrifying monsters are real, and the scariest places are the ones we think are safe. If you have a story of your own, share it in the comments below. Thank you for spending your time with me tonight. Until next time, stay safe, and try to get some sleep. The shadows are always closer than you think,